Good morning, everybody. Greetings. This is Adam. I haven't been around in a while. I've been busy trying to take care of things that needed to be taken care of other than this channel. But I would like to make an effort to come back here and post a video at least once a week. So I'm going to keep the topic on the one that has generated the most views and the most interest on YouTube, which is the fact that I am probably the longest living AIDS survivor on the planet. Um, and let's go back and review how I'm figuring that out. Okay. Well, I never expected to have it because I wasn't promiscuous. I wasn't an IV drug user, didn't know anything about it. I could count the number of relationships I had during my late teens from 18 to 21 on my fingers. That was in 1979 when I graduated high school. I was 18 years old. And I finally started having sexual relationships. I moved from Oregon, small town in Oregon, where I was, down to Los Angeles, and immediately met somebody and had a living situation with my first relationship. And therefore, it wasn't partying, going out to clubs, cheating around, none of that. So it was one person, and that's who I was with. And then there was maybe a couple other people in Los Angeles before or after that relationship that could be included on the list. So 3 fingers go up for people you had sex with in Los Angeles. And then there was, let me see, 1, 2, well, maybe 4. I don't know. Could be 5. I'm not sure, but it wasn't very many. And I can't really count the ones in high school because none of us were contagious or had sex before with anybody. And there was only a couple in high school. I'm not going to say who it was, but both of them had red hair, and both of them were in extras on film in the movie Animal House. So I will give that little hint, because Animal House was filmed in our hometown in Oregon, along with portions of it being filmed in Eugene, Oregon as well, which is 20 miles down the road from Cottage Grove, Oregon. So then I came back I left LA because of the Scientology thing, and so I had to run away because they were seriously overworking me and not paying me enough money to survive. So I left Los Angeles and went back up to Oregon and lived in Portland for, I don't know, a year and a half. And I got to, this was like 1980, or maybe it was a year. I'm not sure. Anyway, I lived 3 companies style with a couple of girls from high school that I knew that had also moved to Portland. And we lived in a big house about 45 blocks from downtown in Northeast Portland. And so over there, yeah, there was some more contacts where I could have caught the virus. Maybe I'm going to go back in my memory and try to remember who and how many and all of that. Not many. I was busy. I was playing piano for the Department of Parks, for the ballet classes that were going on around the city, and working a full-time job at Safeway stores, mostly in produce, sometimes night crew, sometimes up front as a checker. Um, and I had a rock band. So I was busy. I didn't have time to club around, sleep around, find multiple sex partners. I always kept myself really busy. Um, but I do remember going out to Rooster Rock State Park, where there's a nude beach and there's a lot of trails of guys walking around that hook up in the woods. So I probably found, let's see, one. I know one for sure. Let's see, two, uh, three, maybe 3 to 5 hookups total in Portland, Oregon. And not, I mean, they're all hot and everything. It's just that I was too busy to really pursue all of that. So now we're getting up to 10 fingers between Los Angeles and Portland. I'll start using my toes to count the number of sexual partners after that. Because I left Portland and moved up to Seattle area, Bremerton, Washington. Actually, it was Brownsville, Washington, right on the Puget Sound and my dad's waterfront property. I went to stay up there for a little while and get to, reestablish my relationship with my father, who had been chased out of my life when I was he didn't care to be in it when I was a small child, and then he was chased out of it by my stepfather and my mother and the courts, where he went to live in Canada. So that happened for about, 6 or 7 years. And then when I was 18, I reestablished my connection with him, and things were different. We had a lot of fun together. And so I went to live up there and start college and work for a brand new Safeway store in Silverdale, Washington. Again, very rural area, very country-like, not a lot of opportunity for hookup, but I did go to college at Olympic College over there. And in college, I had a boyfriend. And yeah, we hooked up. And I don't know, he also had prior sexual relationships with people in California. So he brought with him whatever contacts he had made, and I had whatever contacts I had made. I really seriously, we were both the same age, didn't have a lot of sexual contacts. I really don't think that I got it from him. And I'm trying to remember if there was anybody else besides him that I even had sexual relations with in Kitsap County, Washington, before I decided to move to New York City. I was doing well on grades and everything, but it was boring for me. So when I was 21, shortly after my 21st birthday, I left college and I moved to New York City. I had met somebody on a trip there, and yeah, we had sex, and then he came to visit me in I was living in Bainbridge Island, or near there at that point, in Paulsbo, Washington. And my grandmother was living right next door in the next set of condos. So he came out to visit me and see if I was somebody that he would want to invite into his life in Manhattan. And so we decided that, the long distance relationship at that time, phone calls cost a lot of money, and our phone bills were hundreds of dollars. So we decided that I would move there. And so I had my last semester of college, and over the Christmas vacation, I moved to Manhattan in 1981. And stayed with that person in a monogamous relationship for 7 years until I was diagnosed with full-blown AIDS. Now, I had a very healthy lifestyle in New York City. We had 3 meals a day. We worked hard. We didn't. I didn't do any drugs. There was no sleeping around. It was totally monogamous on my part. Now, on his part, he probably did screw around because I did catch him later doing all kinds of things like that. But he was negative. When I tested positive, he tested negative. And this is after us having daily sexual encounters like 3 times a day for 7 years in Manhattan. And he never got it, but I had it. But the nature of our relationship was probably the kind where the dominant one doesn't really get infected unless they have some kind of a tear in the skin of their sexual organ, which he didn't, because it probably wasn't big enough to get torn. Anyway, that's funny. I'm not going to say names here about who it was, but I had a long relationship there. It lasted for 15 years. But after I was diagnosed with full blown AIDS in 19, whatever it was, 80 something, the nature of our relationship changed. He stopped having sex with me and wouldn't even touch a doorknob. And I had to move out of our Upper West Side apartment by the Museum of Natural History on 79th Street and by near Central Park. And I moved to the other side of Central Park into our brownstone that we owned and managed and had a business in. So, I mean, not the worst case scenario. I didn't get thrown out in the street. And I did live another 7.5 years over there to make our total relationship 15 years long in the east side of Manhattan instead of the west side. And it was a little easier from there to get down to my favorite restaurants because at that point, everybody I knew was dropping dead from AIDS, and I was in full-blown status. I had less than 200 T cells and was not taking any Western medicine because at that time, everybody on Western medicine was dying. They were not surviving. And I because I had this new single type status, where I lived in my own apartment and wasn't with my lover for, well, I can't even call him a lover anymore. Wasn't with my partner for days and evenings on end. And we had turned our income situation around finally to where we weren't struggling anymore in a retail business and trying to make money that way. We managed to renovate the building I was living in and have a passive rental income of about $35,000 a month, which gave us a lot of free time. So he went traveling around, screwing around the world, while I managed the property and stayed put and tried to take care of my health. It was good. I could live in the property I'm managing. I could do little repairs and tweaks and collect the rents and have enough money, to live on and all of that, and not have to worry about it. I could spend a lot of money on vitamins and herbal supplements. And also at that time, Empire Blue Cross and Blue Shield was paying my doctors for alternative medicine. They paid for the herbal tinctures. They paid for the IVs of massive doses of vitamin C to keep me from getting opportunistic infections like my friends were, who were dying from their second or third round of PCP pneumonia. They also had Kaposi sarcoma, a type of a skin cancer that's very ugly and mutilates, makes your body look horrible with terrible dark growths on your hands and wherever it happens. I didn't get that either. There were a lot of things that people were getting that I didn't get. They had the first symptom of a low immune system is the thrush, the white film in the mouth that becomes sores because you have an overgrowth of yeast or Candida albicans, if you want the actual name of it. Everybody has this when their immune system gets low, or if they trash themselves drinking too much alcohol, eating too much sugar and dairy, not exercising, not eating foods that are good for you, and taking antibiotics will cause it, not replacing your healthy bacteria, which the body has more bacteria cells in it than it does human cells. So when you take an antibiotic, you're killing off all of these beneficial bacteria. And that was one of the main things I had found with my herbal doctor and my healing. I would call him a healer, kind of a biochemist that I found, Dominique Richard, who always hired a doctor on staff to make sure that everything was properly done with the insurance and with the medical association, and that he was not going to be arrested again for impersonating a doctor or doing medical stuff without a license. Whatever it was that caused him to get chased out of the country for saving people's lives by a jealous Jewish doctor who was actually his student, a doctor that he once hired, decided he wanted to be the healer with the herbs and the vitamins, and because there was more money on with this hands-on approach. And so he went out of his way to give legal problems to the actual healer, who is Dominique Richard, with the name of his company being Biofundamentals in Manhattan. During the 1980s, Dominique Richard and his company Biofundamentals and his healthcare workers that worked for him are the reason why I am alive here today. I was on a spiritual quest when I found them. When I realized after my fourth HIV test that I had indeed AIDS, I couldn't believe it, because still I hadn't gotten past really my fingers and maybe a few toes on the number of sexual contacts I had had in my whole life. And I had been monogamous with somebody for 7.5 years who was negative. And so for me to even accept that I had this, what took me 4 tests. And then getting ill didn't help. I got really sick. So I was on a spiritual quest. It immediately transformed me to spirituality, which is a great thing. I think my upper self, my inner self, I thank God, or the essence of who I really am, for giving me AIDS or allowing me to experience this, because I never would have pursued spirituality with the passion, the urgency, and the zeal in which I did after getting a terminal diagnosis and watching every male young man in New York shrivel up and die from a horrible AIDS-related disease. Many families wouldn't even call the deaths of their children related to AIDS, such as Andy Warhol, because it was such a stain on the family name to have somebody die from AIDS. So they would go with whatever was the particular manifestation of a problem caused by no immune system. They would go with that as the primary cause of death, which it is. You're not dying from HIV/AIDS. Nobody dies from HIV/AIDS. Their immune system gets wrecked, and then some other thing comes along and kills them. And it can be a myriad of things. This is the way that the CIA and the World Health Organization designed it when they started releasing HIV and AIDS in 2 or 3 different forms in vaccines in Africa and to the gay doctors in New York and San Francisco. In New York and San Francisco, it was told to give your patients hepatitis B vaccines, which were tainted in the late 70s, early 80s. And in Africa, it was the chickenpox vaccine or the smallpox vaccine, which 400 1,400 Haitians volunteered to go to Africa to help with that vaccination program and received the vaccine themselves, taking it back to the island, hence the outbreak of AIDS in Haiti. Thank you, George Bush Sr., the head of the CIA at the time, Nixon, that started ordering all kinds of things to be done against hippies and homosexuals back when they took homosexuality off of the list of mental illnesses. The American Psychiatric Association did that in the early 70s. The hippies were a problem. You had Charles Manson killing Sharon Tate and family, and Nixon was a hater anyway of any race other than his, and of homosexuals and of hippies. He sprayed the marijuana crops with paraquat, trying to poison the hippies. And George Bush Sr. and the CIA began working with the World Health Organization and British organization to develop some kind of a thing that they could transmit into people that wouldn't get detected until people were dying from all kinds of different causes, which would make it also very hard, or not really bring people to look for a particular agent that was a particular virus that was being spread on purpose to kill people, control populations, undesired populations like the blacks in South Africa, who at the time apartheid didn't want. And the World Health Organization is British, apartheid is British. Put two and two together, they had a vested interest in killing millions of black people in Africa. And then with our paranoid government here in America, paranoid of hippies and gays, homosexuals, they felt completely religiously and spiritually justified to be murdering gay people. And one day there will be restitution, and one probably be 80 before it happens. And I really don't care. I just would like the people that were involved in this to be exposed, and for people to know what the Pentagon and the CIA kind of have a little bit more transparency about what they do by releasing what they do a lot sooner, allowing the Freedom of Information Act to kick in a lot sooner, so that we can really see, because history is moving too fast right now. Things are happening too fast. We shouldn't have to wait 50 to 75 years to find out what kind of fucked up things our government is doing. They're doing them every day, and we should be on top of it. In any case, I'm still grateful for it, and grateful for being in Manhattan at the time. I still don't know who gave it to me. It could have been my very first live-in lover in Los Angeles, who was 10 years older than me and who had had sex in bathhouses, which means he had sex with hundreds of people. Even if it was only 10, each 10 of those had sex with at least 20. So it's like having, if you have sex with one person that's had contact with 100 people, then it's like having sex with 100 people when it comes to spreading diseases. At the time, there were no tests for detecting it. They didn't even know that it existed. So it could have easily been spread from given to me in 1979. And that would be the earliest. So I don't know very many people can say they got it that earliest. The latest I could have gotten it was 1981. So if we want to take the outside number of where I could have gotten it, the shortest time period would be from 1981 to today. Next year will be 2021. So if you add up 81 and go to 2021, it's at 91, 2001, 2011, 2020, 40 years infected as of next year on the shortest amount that could have been. It could be 40 already if it happened in 79 or 80, which I believe it did. But once I got into that monogamous relationship in the end of 1981 with my partner in New York City that lasted for 15 years, I could not have contracted it. We were busy in business. We didn't do drugs. We didn't use needles. We didn't have blood transfusions. We had sex with each other, and that was it. And he was negative. So I had it before I got into that relationship, sometime in 81 at the latest, at the earliest 79, summer of 79 would be the earliest. So it's already been 40 years of infection. How many people can say that they've survived 40 years of HIV infection? I raise my hand. Raise your hand if you had AIDS for 40 years. Okay, now AIDS is not really AIDS, it's HIV or HTLV virus. There's a few different forms and it mutates. If you abuse your medicines, and here's a warning for people that are currently dealing with it, don't go on and off your medicines. The virus will mutate, your medicines will no longer be effective, and you'll have to switch to a new one. And then you'll do it again, and the medicine won't work, and you'll have to switch to a new one. And guess what? Someday you're going to run out. Yeah, they're coming up with new ones all the time, but only at a certain rate. And eventually you will run out of ones that work if you mess around with doing nobody a service to mess around with your medicines. And you may ask, oh, why are you taking Western medicine if you did so well on the herbs and the vitamins and all that stuff? Well, because nothing stopped the virus. All I didn't stop the progression of the virus. The virus kept eating away at my immune system till I had 0 T cells in my blood tests. 0, 0, 0. And I lived that way for 2 years while people that had way more T cells than me were getting these horrible opportunistic diseases and infections and dying all around me, everywhere. In my face. I mean, I had a string of friends named Michael that just got sick and died, within a year of becoming friends with them over and over and over again. I've seen the Holocaust in a viral form, not in the kind that happened in Europe, but a viral one. It was purposeful. It was an attack. It was done by a fascist faction of our government, and covertly, secretly, and they'll never admit to it, but I've seen tapes of ex-military and CIA personnel talking about it, the creation and dissemination of it. And that was provided to me by the Order of St. John in Manhattan, the Royal Order of St. John, that were fighting against the spread of AIDS at the time, and they wanted to find out who was behind it. So they had a lot of pull in different governments, in Britain especially, because Royal Order of St. John is part of the English royalty, and they have access to information. You're talking about people with a lot of money and that do a lot of charity and work for humanity in the world in order to be knighted, in order to, it's just part of what they do now, because they don't really rule as monarchs over anything anymore. But they still like all the trappings of the names and the royal stuff that they do. The titles, they get off on all that. So those people helped me find the information that gave me a little bit of courage, and it gave me a little bit of peace of mind when it came to having to wreak havoc on the financial systems of this country in order to survive. I had to viaticate my insurance policy, my life insurance policy. The doctor gave a letter saying I had 1 year left to live. He didn't like doing prognoses like that, but I told him I needed it so I could buy the recording equipment and start my recording career in music, which gave me wonderful distraction from focusing on the illness. And this is one thing that I recommend everybody do. You have your breath that day, you have your food that day, you have what you need that day. Why focus on being sick when there's so many creative things that you can do? So I got my training at music recording school in Manhattan. Sam Ash had a great school, and not only did I pass all their courses and learn how to do sound engineering for music, I hired the teachers personally at $35 an hour to privately instruct me, and began recording my music immediately. And then my long-term relationship partner jumped on board and helped me promote my music and spread it in a very small market, which was the Israeli community in Israel and New York City and all over the world. It was easy I got to experience while I was dying from AIDS and had no immune system. The fun, I got to experience the fun and the excitement of releasing my first album, being on the cover of all the newspapers and on TV shows and radio shows and stages and all over the place, singing and working with a dance company and going to Israel and touring for 6 or 7 months until I got too sick to continue. At the same time, I did start a cable TV show in Manhattan that ran for about 2 years, called Mystical Being. The name of this channel right now, or may have changed, but that was the name of the TV show that was in Manhattan every Sunday at 6 p.m. called Mystical Being on Manhattan Cable. They would air it a second time during the week at 1 o'clock in the morning, for the nightclubbers to be able to watch on a Monday or Tuesday when they're not really big on going out that much. Although they went out, the promoters went out every night. But in any case, I was creatively making my TV show every week and airing it to millions of people, and working on my album, my career, and started to tour with it, at which point I released reruns when I toured in Israel for 7 months so that my show could stay active in its slot in Manhattan. I'd already amassed a large number of recorded shows finished, so the reruns were really not that repetitive for anybody because they came from a big pile of shows that I had already finished. So while I'm appearing every week in Manhattan, I could do my career singing around in Israel and have that experience of what it's like on a small scale to be famous. A lot of newspaper. When I arrived to Israel to begin touring with my album, they already knew who I was because I'd already gotten several front page newspaper articles in all the Israeli papers around the world with my picture with other famous singers from Israel, and picture with Chaka Khan, who, we went backstage after one of her concerts that we went to, and other kind of, media. I had a picture with then Governor Mario Cuomo, the father of the one that came after him, and on Fifth Avenue during the Israeli Day Parade, holding up my album, my CD. Just my ex was really, really good at pushing me into the right places to get the exposure I needed, and all the while I'm dealing with this illness. I'm cooking 3 organic meals a day. Very strict diet, anti-candida, anti-thrush yeast diet, no sugar, no white flour, no artificial nothing, no alcohol, no fermentation, very little fruit because there's so much sugar in it, and a very wide assortment of vegetables, and healthy kinds of proteins. I became vegetarian for 10 years. Just had this really, really clean diet. And then, of course, there were the herbal tinctures before meals, after meals, the green water mix that was in between meals twice a day to cleanse my blood from all the toxins, to keep me from getting sick, keep me healthy. I still did have a lot of different things going on that were quite painful, bloody, horrible, and I had to be going to different kind of doctors for that. I had to go to a dermatologist because my whole body was covered with terrible, painful, itchy sores from having some kind of infection on my bile duct that blocked the bile from going from the liver through the gallbladder and out of the body. So it would come out through my hair follicles, making my skin uncontrollably itchy, and had a script for suntan booth at the dermatologist that the health insurance paid for. I had I finally got a biopsy done, and they figured out there was an infectious process there that had caused damage, but they got rid of it. The HIV doctor that my doctor referred me to, Michael Mullen, was a really good HIV specialist and put me right in Cabrini Hospital and put me on the acyclovir intravenously, which kills the herpes zoster virus which is a lethal virus when you have no immune system. The herpes zoster virus, which I'm going to warn you about now, is the same one that causes chickenpox. It's the same virus that causes shingles. It's the same virus that causes the paralysis of the face known as Bell's palsy. Everybody pretty much has it. My family especially has it because they were sheep farmers, and somehow the origins of it are somehow entangled with livestock, sheep and cattle. So we for sure had it. In fact, everybody in my family had a half paralyzed face from Bell's palsy, except for me. I'm the only, and my brother. We were young. We never got it. Now I'm at the age where they all got it, or even older, but I'm not getting it because I'm on preventative medicine. I already know that virus is in there attacking not my face, but organs. It's attacking my vertebrae. It attacked my bile duct. It can go anywhere it wants and do whatever it wants if it's left unchecked. That one virus could have killed me. It was the one that was life-threatening to kill me. And at least I discovered what it is, and there is medicine for it that I can stay on every day. And whenever I go off, the symptoms come back with a vengeance. Level 10 pain in the T8 and T9 vertebrae that had my ribs cramping and cracking, and me screaming in pain, barely able to breathe or crawl across the floor. All I could do, my new husband, Clark, would just shove pain pills in my mouth and muscle relaxers and vitamin and calcium pills and things to stop the pain, until I finally figured out that it was the Famvir that I needed to kill the chickenpox virus. Herpes zoster, not to be confused with herpes simplex, which, funny thing during this whole thing, you would think somebody with AIDS is going to have syphilis and gonorrhea and the clap and crabs, and no, I never had any of that stuff. I'm telling you, I was not promiscuous. I didn't sleep around. I didn't do intravenous drugs. This definitely came from sleeping with one wrong person out of however many you can count on your fingers and toes. Probably less than that, not definitely not 20. And that's for a young person between 18 and 21, which was the period of time when it could have happened. That's not very many for somebody that age. Just coming out of the closet after just coming out into sexual activity at the age of 18 after being totally non-sexual because of my sexuality, being raised in a place where they killed homosexuals, small logging community in Oregon that would kill you if they knew. So I was, I couldn't go around and experiment like all of my other friends with their sexual growth as teenagers, which is why I didn't have sex till I was 18. I wasn't allowed to experiment in my sexuality or to have any kind of a normal kind of development in that area because of the danger of being murdered for who you are. And some people may relate. Most of that's over now, and people are much more supportive, but there still are some haters and haters with guns and stuff like that. So, just be careful who you approach to have sex with. I know straight guys joke about that stuff all the time. So, just, I don't know, try to emulate that kind of casualness about it. If you're going to go after, pursue a same gender relationship in a small town area where they're not friendly to gays, most of them are by this time because of the media, and so it's not going to be, you won't have the majority of the people against you unless you live in like some kind of strictly religious community. And then they'll give you that wonderful hate that they've all learned from, I don't know where. Jesus Christ doesn't teach it. So I don't know where they're learning that hate from, but their ministers actually preach it. And, and they think that they're going to go to heaven and be saved and be godly when they're torturing people in the name of their twisted, screwed up, backwards religion. But we'll let that go for another topic: religion and gayness, or religion and AIDS and sex. This one, I just wanted to get through a few things about the beginning of the process. Now, before I leave, I always like to make every video about HIV with a little bit of a disclaimer. Once you're on the meds, stay on them. They work. They do well. Monitor your side effects. It's not like Bono is trying to teach the whole world that you can treat AIDS for 50 cents a day. The cheapest round of medications that you can start with, which are lethal if you keep taking them, is maybe 50 cents a day, and maybe that's what they use in Africa. So don't let Bono's misinformation about the cost of HIV treatment fool you. In America, it costs $3,000 a month. Period. You're not going to get around it. I know a lot of people on meds, and if you were to pay retail price out of pocket, it would be about $3,000 a month. The insurance companies are claiming that they're paying $3,000 a month on behalf of me and on behalf of my husband. So I know how much it costs. It's not 50 cents a day, people. And these are good meds that work. They reverse the progression of the virus. My immune system is growing back. I don't know if it was ever a normal immune system, because it's still really low. It's still only double of the danger level. Danger level is like 200 T cells. Mine's only doubled from being at zero for so long. And my doctor said I probably have permanent immune damage because of that. And I don't really care, because with less immune system comes less things like psoriasis, eczema, allergies, all kinds of things, arthritis, all kinds of overactive immune diseases go away when you get AIDS and when your immune system goes away. But then you become a walking infectious, can't have sex with anybody kind of a person. So stay on your meds and become what they call us undetectable. In my bodily fluids, they cannot detect any virus, therefore I cannot infect anybody. Therefore, I do not have to disclose I'm HIV positive if I want to have sex with somebody. If they ask me, I will tell them. But I don't have to go wearing it on my forehead or a sign on my shirt saying I'm HIV positive. Will you do me? Sorry. The laws may say that you have to in the States, but the laws have not caught up with the technology, and they need to be changed. The technology is working to where it suppresses the virus enough to where you cannot give it to another person. Also, the nature of the kind of sex that you have, the protection precautions that you use as far as condoms in order to avoid other illnesses or contagions, that all can make it less likely. But I'm telling you, if you're undetectable, it's not in your blood, it's not in your semen, it's not in your saliva, it's not going to infect somebody. The only place it resides when you're suppressing the immune system that far with the cocktails of HIV meds that you're on would be the bone marrow. The only adult case of a person to go from HIV positive to negative was a cancer patient, bone cancer patient that received bone marrow from a non-HIV source, and he converted from HIV positive to HIV negative during that whole killing off of his immune system and his bone marrow transplant. Very dangerous and not a viable cure for HIV, but it does let people know that it is possible. So if they can figure out how to eradicate the HIV from residing and hiding in the bone marrow, then they can stop. They can cure it. They can eradicate it from the body. And I believe that that is possible. They're just not releasing the cure. So let's see some good Samaritan, some good person in a lab coat saying, you know what? Let's release this cure. Pharmaceuticals have made enough billions and billions of dollars off their meds. People are dying still from side effects. They're hard to manage. There's a lot of bad things with the side effects, a lot of messing with your lipids and all kinds of different side effects. Let's see them releasing the cure, because I'm really, financially, career-wise, creatively-wise, it has slowed me down a lot to do the great things that I had planned for my life and that I have the capability of manifesting. But because of the kind of like the certain death sentence of not having these expensive medications, there's been a lot of altering of my plans that have caused me not to achieve a lot of the goals that I wanted to achieve in life. And I'm trying to go with the flow, path of least resistance, and focus on the things that bring the feelings of love and joy and wellness and healing to myself and others. And that's where we should always focus our mindset. If I had not learned meditation and knowledge from Maharaji and a lot of help from other modalities, the Breath of Life, Kriya Yoga Institute, Sri Ravi Shankar Pundaji, Breath of Life workshops, again, Maharaji with knowledge, meditation techniques, Raquel Welch's yoga videos, and not that I didn't see her in person every day going up to the yoga studio in my building, but her and her friends were doing yoga religiously every day, and that really had an impact on me, that these women with all this money and ability to buy anything they want worked their butts off over an hour, close to 2 hours a day in that Bikram yoga studio in an apartment in my building that I managed and co-owned with my partner in Manhattan. And so I bought her yoga video because I wanted to do it too and look as good as they do. And it was very helpful. Many times when I should have called 911, I said, let me slip in that video first and do it. Then I'll reassess and see if I need to call. And every single time I didn't have to call 911 because after I finished the yoga, I felt great. So no whining about, oh, I'm a victim and I'm helpless and I can't do this and I can't survive that and I'm going to die and then I'm getting sicker. And, if that's the path you want to go down, it's a spiral to self-destruction and unhappiness, fear and death, suffering and death. You got to have that suffering in there. You're going to have a lot of suffering and death. Now, I can have the different attitude like I have had during the whole time of this illness, that nothing's 100% fatal and that everything's in divine order and that this was all meant to propel me into a very quick track of spirituality, which it did, and be grateful for it and not focus so much on trying to punish those that were the actors in the play. Like George Bush Sr. working as the head of the CIA at the time, disseminating the virus. And I will always repeat this because I really want I want it to be public knowledge that this is what our government does. It engages in covert germ warfare throughout the world ever since before we became a country with the Native Americans. So there's no denying that. We know about that one. The chickenpox tainted blankets, or was it smallpox? Same virus they're dealing with. They mutated. So I love you, everybody, and let's focus on that love. Let's focus on how we can be creative, how these obstacles make us stronger, how these attacks on humanity make us better people. And I'm going to pray for some teeth. I want all new shiny teeth. They're not bad here. But in the back, I only have 2 chew molars left on the top. And let's just affirm prosperity for you and me and everybody. Everybody should have teeth. Everybody should have health care. Everybody should be free of this fear of lack, fear of homelessness, fear of poverty that's going on so hugely in our country right now. It doesn't have to be like this. We're spending all of our money on military. That's why it's like this. And why are we doing that? Because fear's robbing us of our birthright. We must let go of our fear, and we must focus on what it is that makes us feel good, what it is that makes us feel love and joy and kindness and togetherness and happiness, kindredship. Let's see if we can do that. A little bit of healing time every day in meditation goes a long way. Without it, I also would be dead. So I thank Dominique Richard and Bio Fundamentals for giving me the physical tools to save my life. I thank Maharaji for the knowledge, for the meditation, and Sri Ravi Shankar Pundaji for the Breath of Life classes and all of that work, and his wonderful sweet being. And they continue now. They have an ashram in North Carolina that you can go to. I don't know if it's called Kriya Yoga or Breath of Life Institute, or if you search Kriya, you're going to find some other ones that are not him. So look for the Breath of Life retreat in North Carolina if you want a place to go to that would be very healing for you, instantly getting you on a non-toxic path. But remember, you've got to do the meds. They're available to every American. Go through your health department. Figure it out. And no excuses. All this whining and excuses, I can't do this and I can't do that, just make it, it's self-affirming. So let's not do it. You create what you speak. So that's my dog. She wants to go out. So I got to see. Bye, everybody. I'll see you later. Bye. Love you.